First, I'd like to say welcome everyone, and thanks for coming today. My name is Matthew Alexander Cody. I'm a descendant of Jean-Baptiste Cody, who was one of the signatories of one of the treaties, in particular the 1752 treaty. And I'm a band member of Millbrook First Nation Reserve number 27, which is located in Colchester County. But most importantly, I'm a member of the Micmac Rights Association. We're a group of like-minded people who is very passionate about the protection of our treaties. We're very passionate about exercising our treaties. And we as a group, we share a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of great members. We help each other when it comes to constitutional notices, any kind of legal proceedings. We have a great group of people here, especially the people sitting here with me. And yeah, that's what we're all about. And I just thought I'd introduce myself and our association. So I've been exercising my rights my whole life. Only recently I had to pick up the legal gauntlet of the Canadian government trying to criminalize and vilify us for exercising a right that existed since time immemorial here. It's more so the law of the land. It's more of an acknowledgement of the way that we lived here, the way that we shared resources. There was unrestricted access to resources, especially for what we needed. And so our rights and the treaties and the law, they all just kind of recognize that and they reaffirm that. But here we are still fighting this battle. And so I am currently being charged for fishing lobster. Out of season for having traps on my boat out of season. And yeah, so I got 3 charges. They dropped one at the actus reus prior to the trial. So we proved actus reus. So now we're going along to the constitutional side of the arguments, which is here on April 14th. But I anticipate asking for an adjournment. Millbrook, my reserve number 27, finally agreed to give some resources to kind of get a team of lawyers to kind of guide me through this, through the legal litigation of the court systems, and just to be able to navigate properly, like how to call witnesses and stuff like that. So I have no problem articulating our argument. I think most of us know what our argument is, and we're all pretty much on the same page. It's just a matter of being able to prove that in court through their process, which is not just me going in there saying this is what I believe. You got to you have to prove your case through expert witnesses, through question. It's not that easy when you're not used to it. So that's just a little bit about. No, I'm also being charged for cannabis charges, for exercising my right to trade, especially the 1752 created a commercial relationship with the Crown. So just basically, I think I was one of the first to be charged for the cannabis. A lot of us have been going through battles with the lobster, eland, whatever other, all the way from hunting to fishing. So we're all in this together, and we're always looking for new members. I just thought I'd put that out there, and we have strengthening numbers. It's about time that they're going to realize and they're going to recognize our rights that's been affirmed in the Supreme Court of Law. And it's time that the DFO falls in line. They need to stop taking matters into their own hands. And I feel quite confident that if we can keep spreading the knowledge and if we can keep learning as people, that we have the tools to fight back against the broken promises that the Canadian Crown has been displaying for the last 269 years, even more, since they have settled over here. And yeah, I think it's about time. It's been way too long. Now that we have knowledgeable people, we have people willing to take that fight. I think that good things are coming, and yeah, we're way more powerful than we think we are. That's a fact, and that's starting to come out. And yeah, so without keeping us all here, me going on and on, that's basically what we're about.
I'm Daniel Francis. I'm from Pictou First Nation, but I reside in Millbrook First Nation. And yes, I'm part of the Micmac Rights Association as well. And the only reason why I got caught, because I knew I was doing the right thing, and I got caught for transporting lobster back to another lobster pound that I was going to sell the lobster. But they're trying to make me look like criminals, I guess, and we're not. We're just exercising our rights, and so I'm charged with obstruction of a fisheries officer. And I'm not sure what I'm obstructing, because I wasn't doing nothing wrong. So we're in, we just had court. It's going to the federal court right now, and we'll be in there next week on March 28th. Courtroom number 4, I guess. So we'll see what happens after that. I'm just here I got people to back me up, because I just know I'm in the right. I just want everyone to do the same thing as me. I want to let everyone, if they want to sell their fish, they can sell their fish. That's the way it should be.
Good afternoon. I want to say how nice it is for me to be here. I see some distinguished people here. Haven't seen them in quite a while. And of course we have Del Riley, who's a man who has experience from sitting at a constitutional conference table. Del Riley was president of the National Indian Brotherhood, and he has a long history, but I'm not going to right now. I consider Del a good friend, and we're pleased to have him here. The first and foremost thing that we need to realize is that we are Micmac. Even though most of us are born on an Indian res, that was a little island set aside. This is your home, this is where you live. You know, unlike some places, like in Shobi, there was a centralization place, Eskasoni centralization. I don't know if that was like that where I'm from, but I'm still born and grew up on a small Indian resort in northern New Brunswick. But we are Micmac. And just to make sure, put a little bit of coding on that, my mother had 4 sisters. They couldn't speak English. My mother had 4 brothers. There's fluent Micmac speakers. That's how I grew up. We were sent to a Catholic school. I am understanding the Micmac language pretty good. But, so now I want to get into this, to the issues why we're here. I want to thank people like Matt. I want to thank people like Tom over here, Del Riley, Tom Kiefer, and those of you who showed up. I want you to know that we have treaties, and our treaties are with a sovereign, King of England and a sovereign Micmac, our ancestors, and these treaties are well known among us, so I won't go into that here, but I want you to know that people who are going to court for fishing, violating DFO laws, we've experienced that here in Dartmouth just a couple of days ago. The first time that we were there, the sheriffs were kind of rough to us, wouldn't allow all the people who came to attend the court, couldn't get into the courtroom. They only allowed Daniel, Del Riley, and myself. In fact, I had a little bit of a hard time to get in. It was only through his persistence that I was able to get in. Tom, Del Riley's right-hand man, good writer, probably a philosopher by academics, but still he wasn't allowed in. When we were at the court 2 days ago, we spoke. We spoke with the head sheriff, who was a woman. We told her, in a matter-of-fact way, and very diplomacy, nothing rude, we told her, ma'am, you know, we're regarded as criminals, but you need to know that we have laws written in your country's book of constitutional laws I said to her, ma'am, if you look on page 72, page 6, section 52.1, this is what it says in your book of constitutional laws, that Canada's constitution are the supreme laws of Canada. Any law that's inconsistent with its provision of the constitution is null, void, and to no effect. What you're applying to us today is inconsistent with what I just read you. So we bent the rules maybe a little bit. We have laws. We're not here as criminals. We're here to defend what we believe is ours. It's our treaty right. So anyway, she goes in, she goes away, comes back. All right, you guys all can come in, but you all sitting back though. Nobody else can speak, you know. So that was okay. That's exactly what we wanted. These guys, I told them, I said, these men are here today, are our conscience. These are our principal supporters. So with that, I would just say that we were in court, and I was a little bit disappointed because I came, I would say, a total of a little over 600 miles to be here, and all for what? 10 minutes in court? She adjourned it till this coming Tuesday. It's going to be on a telephone type thing. But I want to make reference to our laws. You know, when we go to court, we're regarded as criminals violating DFO laws. But you should know, I was there. I held the title of National Chief for the Atlantic Region. It was made very, very controversial by all of the chiefs in the Atlantic Region, the Indian Act chiefs, I would say, Union of the Brunswick Indians, Union of Nova Scotia Indians. Made my stay extremely hard. But the thing is, they did not support the Rregion. And I'm going to tell you why. The Union of Nova Scotia Indians, like the Union of the Brunswick Indians, is incorporated under provincial law based on federal Indian policy on assimilation. Now I'm going to read to you maybe 3 lines, no more. It's, the court case is court case law is called Costitian. Johnson versus West Virginia Tribal Council Incorporated, 1994. The Native Tribal Council being neither an Indian nor an Indian band, but rather a corporation and was not exempt from garnishment. That means seizure. That means arrest, like all these guys are getting. That's exactly what's happening here in Nova Scotia. The Union of Nova Scotia is incorporated under the Nova Scotia Municipalities Act. All of these chiefs, right from Robinson down Yarmouth, right to Leroy Denny, and right up to where I'm at. They are incorporated under provincial laws. In fact, the truth is, like I just read, they are not Indian at all, let alone being good Micmacs. And a lot of them are fluent Micmac speakers. They're not. They have no authority over us, no authority over treaties. As I said previously, our treaties were signed with the sovereign King of England and our sovereign ancestors. Just make reference to 2. Matt was talking about the Treaty of 1752. I'm quite pleased to be sitting next to a grandson of John Baptiste Cope. That's impressive, you know. He should be up in front in the driver's seat, shifting the gears kind of thing, you know. But we're making that possible. In the eyes of these Indian Act chiefs, I'm a nobody and probably their biggest headache on earth. But that's okay, I don't mind it. I'll keep on doing it. Because I want these guys to be empowered. So now I want to say to you, let's look at Marshall. In all reality, Marshall should not have been able to have the criteria that he needed to go to court. Because at that time, Alex Christmas did not support the writing in a treaty on Aboriginal rights. Alison Bernard in Eskasoni did not. And I don't remember, I think it was Charles Paul in Waikagma. He's already very much up in age, but still, they didn't support that. He has no authority over that at all. In fact, they were very much in line with Jean Chrétien's ugly Indian policy on assimilation. But I'm going to tell you what they did with Marshall. I'm going to try to be brief because we're only here for about 3 hours and these guys all want to talk too. I'm going to tell you what they did. At the assistance of Jean Chrétien, and at that time, Oceans and Fisheries was Herb Deliwall. But for some reason, he got shamed out of it. He hired James Alexander Mackenzie, a man from Glace Bay, Nova Scotia, a very good scholar, law degree, masters of law, like that, you know. In fact, we were told his law degree was in, he had a master's degree in constitutional law. I have never been with a band council, not at all. But I did sit in some meetings. If I was sitting over there, I could smell the whiskey from James Alexander Mackenzie, who was sitting here, probably nearly drunk most of the time. So what they did, the band council used a band council resolution to cancel Marshall, to cancel a treaty right. And that was promoted by the government of Canada. Jean Chrétien, Prime Minister at that time, there's a lot to be said about that, but I won't get into that now. Jean Chrétien put $159 million on the table. And all he had to do, oh, where's my BCR? Okay, I'll sign it right here. Within months, pardon me for pointing, but in months, he put $500 million more on the table. Now, I want you to know how mind-boggling that is. 500 million, wow! And all he had to do was sign. But I want to tell you about a band council resolution. It isn't worth the paper it's written on. So if you would just, I'm going to ask you for a little bit of your tolerance and your kind understanding. I want to share this with you, and it's not easy to find, but it's there. All you'd have to do is snap your fingers, say, hey, I'd like to have a copy. And you're going to have it, and you'll have a copy. It's not like a lawyer where you got to pay me $10,000 or $20,000 and then you're going to get your copy. We are Micmacs. We're here to support each other. We will help each other. We are in dire straits. Canada's dealing with us no different than Nazi Germany dealt with undesirable people in Europe. And that is the truth. If someone would call me, oh, that guy's full of BS, you know? Well, I'm going to say, you look in Western Canada where they have prisons for women. 80% of female persons are Aboriginal women. Here, I seen a statement from the Native Women's Association of Nova Scotia. They were saying we're in dire straits, in emergency conditions. Women are being sterilized against their will. So I won't get into that, but I just want to tell you the power of the local Indian Act Chief and Council. Band bylaw and membership codes, the way to the buffalo jump, has been prepared for many years by a series of Indian Act amendments, many of which were passed through much without notice by First Nations. First Nations have no legal base. If you would look at the Attorney General of New Brunswick, that's their judiciary, and the Justice Minister, Marie-Claude Blais, she's saying what I'm going to tell you now. The First Nations has no legal base. Yet these men are undoing our treaty rights. That's bad. It's okay, a good one. The Indian Act amendments, many of which passed without much notice by First Nations communities. One of the more notable amendments was Bill C-122, which came into effect in 1988. At the time, federal authorities introduced a new provision with the usual misleading phrase. First Nations people were told that the aim was to strengthen self-government in keeping with Ottawa's dedication to progress and fairness. Fairness is like cutting our laws down to nothing. What was actually done at the time was to remove band bylaws and membership rules from the registry and publication, usually it's in the Queen's printer. The Statutory Instrument Act, Bill C-122, band bylaws and membership rules were given the same effect as federal laws and such, and band whose laws or membership rules were published and the Statutory Instrument Act would override provincial and federal laws. Override federal and provincial laws. That gave us good power, or them good power. And it goes on to say, even other federal laws, such as the Fisheries Act. So where do we find ourselves now? Being close to being in municipalities which have no power at all over our lives. You do as you're told or shut up. And most of the time is to shut up. I'm almost done with this now. Since Bill C-122 came into effect, band laws and rules have been reduced to nothing more than local policy guidelines. There's a big difference from being sovereign, a sovereign king, a sovereign Micmac, and that's what these treaties are. To give you an idea how strong that is, we signed, our ancestors went to Boston at the request of General George Washington. The letter came in 1875 in October, inviting the Micmac to come to meet with him in the colony of Massachusetts Bay, and they did. A Continental Congress addressed the same kind of letter in February of 1776. The same thing, come to meet with us in the colony of Massachusetts Bay. And I won't go into any more detail, but on July, after a 10-day conference, an international conference, a treaty was put on the table and the Micmac signed it. And I have an article from the Boston Globe, and maybe there's some of you who might know about it, I'm not too sure, but it says in there, it's the first sovereign people ever to recognize the independence of the United States of America. I like that. Jim over there, is he agreeing with me? I like that. That's true. It is true. That's right, exactly how sovereign we are. Yet, municipalities are removing our laws and we're saying and doing nothing about it. If that isn't a crime, you'd have to tell me what it is. You know,
Excuse me, the water town.
well, that's what they call it, yeah, yeah, you're right. You know, so we have to understand. Now, I could get myself in a whole lot of trouble, but I'm gonna share this with you. If you ever wanted a copy of the interim fishing agreements, I have one here. They were canceled out by Everett Martin, where I live, Chief Everett Martin, Allison Bernard, Alex Christmas. You named them, they signed it, and that's what they did. In fact, I'll even go a little bit further and say, the Atlantic Policy Congress, John Paul, yeah, signed, he was the second to sign the interim fishing agreements, representing 33 of the Indian Act chiefs at the Atlantic Policy Congress. He signed that on the 2nd of December, 1999, just a little over 2 months after Marshall was made public. The first one to sign it was the Union of the Brunswick Indians. And that man who was the head of the fisheries, you would have think that he would be saying, I'm the director of fisheries with the Union of the Brunswick Indians. I am Chief Arthur Bear. He didn't say that. I am Chief Arthur Bear, Commissioner of Fisheries. That means he had no authority at all, let alone being part of a municipality. He's calling himself one of them. So these are major crimes that we all need to pay some attention to.
Just on that note, and I want to make it clear, Sagamore Chief Rich Maloney never signed. Refused $23 million.
That's Shuby, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Never
I
signed.
knew there was some hesitation there, and I think Bear River and maybe Afton, but I'm not sure.
Just to be clear.
Thank you. And so these are the kind of things. Now, I want to tell you that I held a title. It was an electoral system through the National Indian Brotherhood. I was one of the candidates. Chief Dennis Nicholas of Tobique was the other candidate. I received 80% endorsement from the Atlantic region. And I saved the paper. I didn't bring it. I have it though. So, because, and of course, Dennis Nicholas was a pretty well-known person. You know, I think he served the terms as chief in Tobique, probably some terms as the vice president of the National Indian Brotherhood, things like that, you know? So he was high profile. But I also want to tell you this. When the National Indian Brotherhood, I think it was Newell Star Blanket at the time, probably coming toward 1980, they decided to extend a protest to England and Europe, because I don't even know if England is Europe, because I always make a distinction there. But they went to Her Majesty's Palace in Buckingham Palace, and they protested to her. They went to the Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher at the time, protested to her. Went to the leaders of the opposition, protested to them. They went to the International Court in The Hague. They went to the United Nations. But I'm going to tell you where they get their best support. African countries. African countries called the National Indian Brotherhood representatives. There was 250 of them out there. You come over to our office. We have an embassy in London, England. You come in and tell us how we can help you. That's what made the difference. Japan was involved, and as well South Korea. So that's how we got a seat at the constitutional table. It wasn't the kindness of Pierre Trudeau. Yet these men are targeting us to be done. Here's like we'll call it. Here's the Indian Act chief dressed up as though he was a Sioux Indian, after killing I don't know 99 Union soldiers. He won all his feathers. That's fake. That's fake. These are the men that aren't doing our treaty rights. They have no authority to do that. So anyhow, I'm taking a little bit long here, but I'm going to try to be brief and conclude myself in a quick minute. When we sat at a constitutional conference table, this is what was on the table already. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II signed this on the 17th of April, 1982. And I'm going to sound a little bit like a racist, but I hope you don't interpret it that way, because that's not my intent. 3 Frenchmen from Quebec signed that. Who was their premier at that time? René Lévesque. He did not support, nor did he recognize this process. So, and he represented Pierre Trudeau, Jean Chrétien, André Ouellet, the men who signed that. And by the way, it wasn't Pierre Trudeau that signed after Her Majesty. It wasn't. It was Jean Chrétien. And Jean Chrétien told a big lie. Jean Chrétien, on the paper, Her Majesty signed right at the top. You would imagine she read all this. I like it. Okay, I'm going to sign right here. even if she didn't like it, you would think she read it and she's gonna sign here. But that's not how she signed. You start right at the top, a protest. And I'm gonna show you a picture sometime of her when she's looking at Pierre Trudeau signing that proclamation. So over here, Jean Chrétien, he puts it as Attorney General. Now, Attorney General status, that's got to do with the courts. But he was also the Justice Minister, top cop. He was also the Federal Provincial Constitutional Liaison. He signed only one title though. At the bottom, you would think it'd be Pierre Trudeau on Rigolet. Pierre Trudeau was the last to sign. If you were a school teacher and you wrote that ugly, you probably would give him a D- or something like that, you know, for a grade. And they call themselves independent. You can't be an independent and a Commonwealth country at the same time. It's inconsistent. If we only could find a British North America Act, I'm sure you're going to see it written in there. So we're on safe ground, we're on solid ground, and we're here, and I'm going to tell you sincerely, I admire men like Daniel, Matt, anyone and everyone who stood up and say, I don't need that interim fishing agreement to sign or to fish. We have a treaty right. Like we told them yesterday, 2 days ago, I mean, when we went into court, they looked at us as criminals. And thanks to our good buddy Tom, he found the head sheriff woman, and we told them, well, you know, we're not criminals. We have our own laws, you know. We have treaty rights, we have original rights. And I explained to her, and she listened. That's how we got in. We didn't say any swear words, you know. We were kind, diplomatic. We don't want to make ourselves look bad at any time. So that's what we did. Okay, so I want to say maybe one more thing, and then maybe after a while I'll get a chance to speak again, but I want to make reference to you. Our internationally recognized rights are being undone as we speak. A woman, Arlene Dunn, who holds the title in Blaine Higgs Conservative Government of New Brunswick, went to Ottawa on the 29th, well, she was there before that, but on the 29th of May 2021, and she told Parliament, you must change these laws. You are giving these Indians too much power, more power than we have at the provincial level. And so what happens here? This guy name, I don't really know him, but his name is Dr. T.J. Duma-Wilson. I don't know the guy, but he's hired by the Atlantic Policy Congress. So these are serious things that we must not, you know, those of us that are here today, because, oh, the goddamn troublemakers, they're here, look, they're at it again. These are laws written in their book, and they're supreme laws. It's okay, I want to only make one reference, because I know, absolutely know with certain, that you may not find what I'm going to share with you now. After I tell you, you're going to take the time to look, and you're going to find it, and you're going to say, holy Christ, I didn't know that. So that's how we're going to do it, okay? So I'm going to shut up after this. I could tell you a good story, but I won't do it right now. Del Riley was sitting at that table, November 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 1981. Chairman of that presiding constitutional conference was Pierre Trudeau. Jean Chrétien, Roy Romano, and Roy McMurtry, and their lawyer, Eddie Goldenberg, a Jewish man who forgot what happened in Europe 1933 to 1945. What Adolf Hitler and the Nazis did to undesirable people. You're doing the same thing to us here. Did you forget that? We told him, I told him. So now, this is what it says. Jean Chrétien says, the supremacy of Parliament. That's what they keep telling us. And us, we fear them. But there's probably people around here that have no fear at all. And we're going to do what needs to be done. So I won't go, there's a whole lot of things here, but I won't get into it. This is what was on the book. They call it procedural law, are discussed in detail under the heading Issues of Canadian Law. At the end of the unit, for our immediate purposes, it is helpful to distinguish between advocates of procedural law believe that the courts may examine only how a law is applied. So they're looking at us in racist attitudes, a racist belief, and paying the Indian Act chiefs billions. In fact, 1 year is 15.5 billion right now. In Sydney, Membertou, Chief Terrence Paul got a 1 billion, that's what it be, just a little about a year and a half ago, a little bit more maybe, but not much. Now, I want to tell you our power. And now they're saying there's substantive law. It's not a big word, but it may not be a word that you use every day or even at all. But from this moment on, I want you to engrave that in your mind. Substantive law. That's our tool. Substantive law means that the courts may examine the contents or substance of the law. According to this point of view, the courts may consider matters as whether the law is too harsh, unfair, cruel, contrary to our traditional sense of justice. And it is. When these men promoted by John Rregion, using $659 million, and the millions hasn't stopped, to undo a sovereign treaty, that is troubling. That's enough for us to stand up and say, hey buddy, no more, no more. We're not going to take this no more. And I'm going to tell you, don't get too mad at me. There's been only 2 people sitting around this table who did that. Bill Riley is one, I'm the other. And I totally admire men like Daniel, Matt, a good friend over here, I shouldn't say that, Tom. These are credible human beings. I know Jim, but only in passing, so I can't say too much. But I know that when he was 18 or 19, he went to Boston, because there's no friggin' chances around here at all. Probably brought his wife there too. They went to Boston, because there was no hope, no chances here at all. He probably even joined the U.S. military, things like that. So, to live a little bit normal. So, okay, with that then, I'm going to say, if you have any good questions in relevance to the topic, I'm open-minded to that. I would not answer any personal questions, but I would want you to say, well, where can I get a copy of these band council resolutions? Where can I get the interim fishing agreement? If I know, I'll please tell you. Thank you.
Very nice, very good presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
Very informative,
Thank you.
well documented.
It means a lot to me coming from a man with your credibility. Thank you.
Okay, I'm probably going to be much briefer, but I'm going to be telling you something very important, extremely important in terms of both your treaty, your rights, and any cases that have or may come up in the future.
Can you speak louder, Dale?
Okay, yeah, I'll speak a little louder, then I can hear me myself. Okay, let's go back in time. I'm also a historian, and as well, as everyone knows here, I put 4 sections in the Canadian Constitution. And today, part of what I'm going to be talking about is how Section 25 and 35 are connected, so that if you ever go to court, you have to have both of them right there. But I'll give you the reasons. But okay, let's go back in time when your 1752 treaty. Let's just look around there at that time. Now, in Ontario, we were fighting against the British. And before 1763, we had captured 9 of 11 forts and killed everybody in all those 9 forts. So we defeated the British, but they were having problems against you guys here. They were in deathly fear of you for that reason. And of course they're trying to fight to Quebec too, here and over in Europe, so they were very extended. So they were in absolute fear of you. And so your treaty is so important in terms of they were practically on their knees to get that from you. So, and that's what they got. But you were the boss. Now I'm going to connect it to Section 25 and 35. Okay, your treaty is protected by not just one, by both sections. And Section 35 will contain all of the rights that treaties don't give you. Treaties are primarily documents that introduce two nations. They don't get into a lot of details of what powers your nation has versus what powers that nation has. You don't really get into it, but you recognize the sovereignty of each of those nations. And your treaty, of course, was the first one, but it went into a lot of detail that they never did in other treaties, and a lot of different contexts. And of course, the first one was they were deathly afraid of you. You were king. You were the boss. You could have killed them off. That's what they were afraid of, because we did it. And even up to the end of the but 1763 was very important in that the Royal Proclamation was made. And you guys were part of the reason that it was made, okay? So it's also connected to your treaty. And that's very important news for you to know. I haven't told other people this, but now you know the two very important points. You were the boss. You were king, and they were deathly afraid of you. So that's why your treaty said what it said at the time. Oh, and the important thing of what it said is it stated a lot of detail about Aboriginal treaty rights. The fact that you could trade, that you could travel from here, there. You could set up your, well, I call them truck houses, but actually they'd be businesses today, because today you'd use a modern context, as other Supreme Courts have said. But that's the way it would have evolved. Now, Section 25 recognizes a 35, so that's important to you. And the other thing about the wording of Section 25, they can't derogate or abrogate from the true meaning of the treaties for your rights, okay? So they're all always connected, and which means they can come in and reinterpret by opinions any other ways, including judges. They can't come in and reinterpret what was your Aboriginal and treaty rights. So where does that leave us? It means only we can do that. So, and it's a job that our people yet have to do. And but this is the kind of knowledge you need to know, so that you could probably begin that work and do a complete job, so that it not only encompasses your total sovereignty of that day, but also bring it to a modern standard where you have the right controls for your nation. And the important thing of Section 35 is when I put that in, it was for the traditional people, because the Indian Act chiefs and councils never signed treaties. It was your traditional people. Okay, what you have left, if you may have to reconstruct things, but the rights of your nation to make laws rest with each individual person of that nation. So that's really where you're at on Section 35 and 25. And but that'll give you a better understanding, and hopefully give the judges a better understanding of how and what is the proper way to use this. And if you need an expert witness, you have to call on me.
For sure, 100%.
Okay, does that help you understand where you're really at? And actually how powerful your treaty really is. And you know, if I have one criticism well, not only Marshall, but a number of court decisions that have been rendered in the past. The big problem with them is they always try to narrow things down to some little thing in the corner that both denigrates and tries to wipe away your right or its effectiveness. And they so many court cases have done this, and the problem is they stick only to their interpretation of what the treaty said. But mostly, if the treaty didn't say it, then you don't have it. So these are the kind of things that their legal process has been doing to you and the treaties. And this is the thing that I see is wrong. So now you that'll help you understand your side now. Okay, that's probably the most important thing I should say today.
If there's no one else that wanted to speak, I have lots of good information I want to share with you, and I'll try to be brief. You know, one of the things that we have to pick up on, and it's essential, our survival depends on it. If we don't pick it up and do what we need to do with it, we're doomed. I always say, and I probably regret saying it, but we are on life support right now. We are critical conditions. We need you, we need you, we need the media, we need women. You know, these people that are sitting here, they can't be looking, oh, they're all a bunch of goddamn drug dealers, oh, goddamn drug dealers. These are the only men that I've met who were brave enough to stand up to protect our treaty rights, our Aboriginal rights. When they called on Del Riley, I'm pretty sure he didn't hesitate. I know when Del Riley and Tom called on me, I didn't hesitate. In fact, I feel like I'm in heaven now with these men, some women. This is what the government of Canada is doing for us. It's not a liberal government thing, it's not a PC government thing, it's not a Stephen Harper thing. It's the government of Canada, and all public servants are dedicated to that, just like Nazi Germany was dedicated to extermination of a total race of people. And this is how we're doing it. Authoritarian system, I wouldn't read it all, only just the top 3 lines, but I might say one about it. Assimilation is the practice of forcing an individual or people to stop being who he or she is and to become someone else. Usually that's done by legislation. That's exactly what's happening right now, and we got to wake up to that reality. How can this overpower a supreme law, a sovereign treaty right with the King of England? It's not just King George III, but all of them. I think Del Riley said it best. On October 7th, 1763, King George III signed a royal proclamation. They call it the Royal Proclamation of 1763. King Louis XIV of France signed the same damn thing. And I want you to know, they're not my buddies, they're not my friends, I'm not even loyal to them. But I want you to know what's written in England's book of constitutional law. It says the law came from the king's mouth. And they even went so far to say the king is divine. That means God. You know what I mean? So that's pretty high status. And I want you also to share with you right here, international law. Chapter 1, Foundation of the Legal System. Numerous treaties signed by many of the nations of the world have universally acceptance that they comprise a body of laws viewed as binding upon all nations except Canada. I wish I could give you each a copy of this so you can care when King Charles come here in May, you can stand up and say, Your Highness, this is what I have for you. Read it. Read it out loud right now. We can't be nice guys with them because they aren't nice guys to us at all. So, and then I want to say something else that's not usually said, and again, don't get too mad at me. We're all everyday, regular kinds of people. We don't know the powerful laws in England. But I want to tell you, I don't want to let you know or tell you that I'm exceptional, but let's just say I know what I'm looking for when I see it. And what I'm going to tell you right now, in Canada, It says that the British North America Act constitutes nothing, and think all our judiciaries erected hereupon, or herein, something like that. So what happened when Her Majesty signed on the 17th of April, 1982, like I showed you a while ago, I won't go into that now, but what Pierre Trudeau did at that very moment, his mind was already made up how he was going to do. He renamed the BNA Act, the Canada BNA Act 1867-1982. If the BNA Act constitutes nothing, then what does the Canada Act constitute? Nothing. Yet these men are undoing, these governments are undoing our treaty rights. If someone thinks that we're a bunch of animals running around in our birthday suits, you know, we should remind them, look, this was a map drawn by Samuel Champlain in 1605. He had it pretty good. In reality, Micmac country goes on the west side of Quebec City today. In fact, there's even an Indian reserve there. We should take it. It says St. Joseph Distillery. That's where our land ends, going that way. All the state of Maine is Micmac. All those place names on the rivers, lakes, and streams in Maine are Micmac. So how can we allow some brutal men and some brutal women now, whether she's a chief down that way or is a woman chief where I'm from? It doesn't matter where she's from. She's an agent of the federal government of Canada to remove these rights from us. So now I want to share one more big thing to you. And I'm only saying this because once I wake the spirit up in you, you're probably going to be able to say, okay, let's find it. Who has the authority to put in place a Governor General? If I had to ask the question and I'm going to bet him $50, I probably would win $50. If I could put $500 on the table, I probably would lose $500. This is not easily known, but I want to tell you about that. The only person who can put a Governor General in place in a Commonwealth country is Lord High Chancellor. In fact, I'm going to take a good educated guess, and I stand to be corrected. You guys can criticize me if you want, that's okay. But I'm going to take a good guess and say, within the British North America Act, there's no mention of an office of a Prime Minister. There's no mention of a person who will hold the office of Prime Minister. Yet, who puts in place the Supreme Court of Canada judges? Prime Minister. Who puts in place the Commissioner of the RCMP? Prime Minister. Who puts in place the Governor General? The Prime Minister. And in a Commonwealth country, again, I'm going to take a good guess and say that it says that the Governor General is the Constitution in a Commonwealth country. And how come we are sitting here saying and doing nothing? So I want to share that with you because I really want you guys and the woman there to wake up to these realities. This is our tool. If I were to say, well, this is our best weapon, because, oh, this here guy talking about war? No, I'm not talking about war. I'm talking about a tool that we could use. Now, if someone says to me, oh, there's no such thing, holy, here I have it right here. Incumbent, Dominic Raab, since 25th of October 2022. How long ago was that? 3 months? 4 at the most? So if someone says to you there's no such thing, you say, yes, I'm going to show it to you. And that's exactly what we need to do. And I want to say one more thing and before I shut up for a little while anyway. If there are any of you have $1 million or 2 or 5 or 10 in your bank account, I would say take it out and bring it home. If you've got to buy a safe as big as this table, lock it in there. Because I'm going to tell you what, the RCMP are empowered right now by Justin Trudeau to do what they did to the truckers in Ottawa in 2022. Froze all the bank accounts, froze any person that gave donations. As you know, that when the truckers were there, probably within the first week, they already had 10 million. By the time the second week rolled around, there was 26 million available to them. What Justin Trudeau did, he has no authority to do that. He declared martial law. And he gave the band council chiefs $2.2 billion at the end of February before that. What do we know about that? Probably nothing, but now you do. So I want to say that we need you. We need to wake up to these realities. So I'm going to stop talking now because thank you.
Dale, were you going to say
Oh,
something?
yeah, I didn't want to say much, I just wanted somebody to pick up my book.
Bring it over to you?
Show them. People, it's important because people need to know about Aboriginal treaty rights. And read this book, you'll begin to understand it. And if you want to learn about the rights at all, this is where to begin. And if you have your own ideas about it, I mean, you can add to it, but you'll find it useful. And I've had nothing but rave reviews on it so far. And I've just got it printed now, so I expect to sell it out quite a few times over. But again, the important thing is that it will give you a background, and you can always refer to it in the future. There will never be another like it. There's only one.
Yeah, I agree with Del. I think knowledge is the key, because not a lot of people are very knowledgeable when it comes to Aboriginal treaty law. Not people in the court system, not even people in our own chief and council. Now, I've said this before, when I approached my chief and council about opening a cannabis shop and partaking in I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I wanted to get into the cannabis industry because I knew it was going to be a very flourishing thing. And so I approached my chief of council, and they weren't too keen on it. But I said, we have a right to do so. And when I told them we had a right, there was an individual I won't name because they're actually a friend of mine, but this just shows that the lack of knowledge that we have. He looked square at me and he said, "We don't have no rights no more, we lost them with the logging and tobacco." And I said, that's the craziest argument I've ever heard in my life. But that's just to show that that person was somebody that I thought was very knowledgeable. He's very knowledgeable, he's a very, very successful person, and but he just didn't know. Same with when I went to court and I put the crown on knowledge that I was there, my own free will and in good faith. I let the courts know that I said I'm a Micmac man. I said we're a sovereign nation, and I said we're an ally to the British Crown and this Canadian government. We're not servants to the Crown, and so I let them know that I was there at court on my own free will as an ally to the Crown, and it really took her back, especially when I kind of started explaining what I thought the mutually binding obligations that were made up of our treaties that we signed during a time of war between two nations to better our sides. So they have a name in the court system. It's like sui generis. It means that they're unique. Because of exactly what I just said, they said it's unique in the sense that it was signed by two competent parties during a time of war to better their sides. So in essence, it was the backbone and foundation of peace and harmony between two nations. Where if there wasn't that peace and harmony between these two nations, one nation probably wouldn't have made it. And so it goes all the way back to those obligations, and these obligations can't be made or they can't be broken or changed according to international law. That topic was brought up in the Simon case when they were trying to challenge the legitimacy of the treaties. And when it was brought up for the first time in the Canadian history that our treaties might outweigh federal legislation, they quickly said, okay, it's a real treaty. I said, all right, yeah, it's valid. So it's all about knowledge. Like a very close friend of mine, he's actually a prosecutor now, I won't name him, but he was a lawyer. And I really admire this guy because he, when he was in law school, he took Aboriginal and treaty law as as an elective. And so one of his huge papers that he did it on Chief Major Jean-Baptiste Cody. And so I was sitting in his office one day, and this is about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more. And this is when he was still a lawyer. And he was like, he said, Matt, he said, nobody understands. He said, nobody understands. He said, the power that you guys hold and the treaties that you guys have. He said, they have to be honored. He said it's just a matter of people fighting for it. He said in 10 years, he said you will be amazed. He said at the acknowledgement, and like as long as we keep fighting for these rights, he said you'll be amazed the power that you have that's in those treaties. And the more and more I see through like just different countries even recognizing our rights here and putting pressure on the Canadian government to acknowledge them. And I really like the Standing Senate Committee. They just put out a good report. It was called Peace on the Water. It was about implementing First Nations rights into the Canadian government and addressing the systematic racism that's very prevalent in the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And it put timelines, and put time frames to what they expect. One, which was huge, is that the the Department of Fisheries and Oceans doesn't have the capacity to regulate our treaty rights. And so they suggested that the powers be switched over to, it would be Northern Affairs, and that the DFO only works as a like in cooperation. It'd be kind of like, not even an overseer, but it'd be like an advisory role type deal. And so I think those are huge steps, especially since it was the DFO that has constantly been breaking these obligations, and they've been taking law into their own hands, and they think that they're justified through conservation when there's no conservation effort on behalf of them to lower the existing commercial fisheries, which scares a lot of commercial fishermen when you start talking about that, because then it entails them lowering the amount of traps they can fish, lowering the amount of quota that they can catch, because, like it or not, our rights-based fisheries prevails over privilege-based fisheries. That's a fact, and that's been affirmed. They pointed that out in the Standing Senate Committee of Canada when it came to implementing First Nations rights. And so, like I said, like, knowledge is key here. We just have to get knowledge. We have to be aware of what our rights are and how to argue them properly in a court of law. Because, like it or not, we have to fight them at their own game. Like I was saying earlier, there's a process of law, the way it works, and we have to fight them at their own game, which is unfortunate, because our treaties here in Eastern Canada are unique compared to most treaties that are signed even throughout the world, because these treaties were not they weren't a land succession. Like we didn't lose, so it was a peace and friendship treaty is what these treaties are, and that's what makes them so unique. Because it's okay, look, we're engaged in a war, both sides are not liking where it's going, we're taking losses, et cetera, et cetera. They had more interest in signing these treaties because they had to occupy here when they had very little people at first. So it was very pivotal for them to sign.
You've got a beautiful opportunity here.
Absolutely.
And it's going exactly the way you said it is.
That's right.
I believe that one of the, pardon me, just.
No. That's
One of the things that people think about when they look at our treaty is that it's like a big sheet of paper, and the Indigenous and Micmac side of it now in our treaty is just maybe a paragraph or a straight line down the side. In reality, our treaty was the land. And the settlers were agreeing how they were going to live on our land and behave on our land. That was the whole basis of our treaty. They had nothing to offer.
That's right.
Other than, okay, we'll have friendship then, right?
Yeah.
That's all they had to offer in reality.
But you've got to deal with all these details today, though.
Yes, that's true.
What's
true.
what? Yeah.
Exactly. So the treaty as I said in 1985 in the Simon case, it said that the judge said your treaty is as good as it was signed 2 days ago. You know, and that was a big, I lived through the non-treaty process. I lived through the welfare process. I grew up on the res when there was nothing, no electricity, no running water, when it was illegal to hunt, when it was illegal to fish. I grew up in all that time frame.
I did as well.
And our people suffered tremendously back then. You couldn't sustain yourself on anything. On anything. You might sell a few Mayflowers and baskets and Christmas wreaths, right? But other than that, you couldn't go out logging. You couldn't. My dad and I would go out and sneak ash, black ash, so we could make baskets and mostly axe handles. And we cut the trees late in the afternoon, and the wood would blow them down overnight. Nobody would hear them falling, right?
Yeah.
And we'd live in a lean-to for like 3 weeks in the woods. That's how I grew up. So where we are today, it's amazing, you know, the things that we're doing today, because education is paramount. Knowing our treaties is paramount, and you guys are doing an awesome job. I wish this actually was being held on the res, so that a lot of people could have attended and shared their knowledge and their background.
I think I've already promised the association that
Go ahead.
I would be available. I'll speak to any group, large, small, and, bringing people up to date so they understand what your rights are.
Well, we need to get the pencil and crayons out,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And make it very, because we're learning by our own experiences of
Yeah.
what
Fight-
it is.
By
right?
fighting, yeah.
Yeah, we're learning and learning. That's right.
Okay, I want to give you an idea just how powerful we are, just how relevant these treaties are. Because I'm going to share with you 2 small statements made by Pierre Trudeau, and he's not our friend by the way, okay? And the first one I would like to give, it was in a statement that he made on August the 8th, 1969 in Vancouver, British Columbia. Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau remarks on the Aboriginal treaty rights. They are not citizens. That's what he said. I think Canadians are not too proud about their past in the way in which they treated the Indians, Micmac for us. I don't think we have a great cause to be proud. That's what Pierre Trudeau is saying, and he's not our friend. Then he goes on to the next couple of lines, and they are not citizens. So if we're not citizens, we're a sovereign Micmac. That's how we need to interpret it. One more little small thing about Pierre Trudeau again. He said this when Nisga'a in the 1970s won a case in the Supreme Court. 6 of the 9 judges sided with Nisga'a, British Columbia people. And again, this one's only about 3 lines. I want you to know, and I want you to stand firm and promote what I'm going to tell you what he said. For the first time, the concept of Aboriginal title has been recognized by the highest courts in Canada. This was the Supreme Court of Canada, okay? Well, Trudeau said, it looks like you got more rights than I thought. So if you thought we didn't have any rights, he said it. We couldn't have said it any better than that. Here's another, I'm going to tell you, if you'd have seen this in a big thick book, I would never believe what I had found. That's a statement made by Pierre Trudeau on August the 8th, 1969, and they are not citizens. If that isn't the foundation of our treaty rights, then you'd have to tell me what is. So,
That's the year of the white paper.
That's what I was just thinking, public policy 1969.
Speak of that, please.
You know, there's another royal proclamation.
I didn't quite hear you. I want you to say
I
that.
said the same thing that Dave said here.
Yeah.
The year of the white paper policy by Pierre, former president, not Pierre, Pierre Elliott Trudeau Sr.
Yeah, it's
He
very
enacted
true, but
white
this
paper
affirms
policy.
that we're not citizens. Treaties are valid. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just saying, there's another policy that you'll have to kind of look up, because eventually you'll fit it in with all the other rights, and that's the Rome Proclamation. And that was one of the reasons I said you're so closely connected with the Royal Proclamation. The Rome Proclamation also affects you, and it details a lot of the kind of Aboriginal rights there are. Well, we all had the same rights, so no matter what treaty you get them out of, we all had the same rights. It's the same as we have the same religion, same music, all the same. But yeah, you'll, well, one important thing about it is that it says in Ontario, all Indians that live in Upper Canada is tax-free. And the other thing about the Rome Proclamation, it wasn't about controlling Indians, it was protecting them against white encroachment, okay? So that's totally different. So what it recognized in there was some of your Aboriginal rights. Well, you still have them. So
We're separate governments.
even if they, they veered off of that law now, but you still have it. So those things you have to consider when you're putting things together.
Well, there's a very selective process. I mean, when they talk about our spirituality and our cultural rights and our inherent rights, people are recognizing those. Yeah, well, those are in our treaty.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And the process is that we have a responsibility to uphold our treaty,
Yep.
to enforce our laws and our understanding of the way our treaty is. Nobody else can do that. Nobody else has the ownership that we have of our territory and our lands. Nobody can understand that. So talking about corporations, Canada's a corporation, provinces are.
There's a document in Ottawa that says exactly what you're saying, and it's a declaration on Aboriginal treaty rights put together by all the traditional people from all across Canada, all the brightest minds of the day.
Yeah.
And it says exactly what you're saying, but it speaks in general terms of the way we lived and the kinds of authority that we have. But it speaks to those things. So that's something else, that you need to get. But yeah, it's in the book too. So.
So your authority and jurisdiction to regulate our treaty rights can only come from us.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and
We have
only
the laws,
interpretation-
we have the enforcement process, the harvesting process. We interpret what those rights we were born with.
You've been doing that for thousands of years.
Thousands of years, this is how I act. And this is how.
And you still got it.
And this is how I sustain myself in my lands.
Yeah.
So you cannot make that, at what point did that become illegal? Okay?
Only as they got greedier.
It never ever became illegal
No,
because, Canada was born out of our treaty.
Yeah.
So if you don't recognize the treaty, there is no Canada,
No.
right? So it's a very simple process, but I mean, it's a one-page document, but it's a powerful document. And most of us in the Siboney district I'm the Siboney district war chief, Most of us, I served Dalton Gas their eviction notice, right? Anyways, the process of that whole territory is a big territory, and that's why they fight so hard in that area, right?
Well, at some point in the future, they're not doing it today. You're not addressing any of these issues, and I think it's going to be your association that gradually takes a bull by the horn and faces it, or take the bull by the tail and face the situation.
Well, I've been in law enforcement for
Yeah.
50 years,
Yeah.
right? I'm 150 years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
So we've been told by lots of people, by the province and DFO and the RCM police, arresting our officers, charging our officers, doing all this, and we beat them all. I mean, because this is our home. And we're not talking about reserve lands, Indian Act.
No, you.
Our authority is wherever our people are,
Mhm.
200 kilometers offshore, right across the country, wherever our people are, and I proved that in court, right?
Yeah.
So, nothing they could do about, oh, you have jurisdiction only on the reserve. Can you imagine? Well, if I only have jurisdiction on reserve, you don't have jurisdiction on reserve, right? No,
You're gonna need a neutral like organization to address all these issues for you, and maybe it's gonna be your association that's gonna have to do it, because the chief and councils, their hands are tied. They're really just instruments of the Minister of
Well, the
Indian
Indian
Affairs.
Act makes us
Yeah.
all act like Indians,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which
can't
we
do
are not.
anything.
Well, it's like Matt's friend said, 10 years ago, what it's gonna be 10 years today.
Yeah.
Now we think 10 years from today is gonna be.
He's a prosecutor, and he still,
Continue.
and he still
Continue
says, and he still stands by his
Yeah.
statements.
It's
He
like
says
an
that.
onion, one peeling at a time.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
No, it's awesome that you guys are doing these information sessions, and they need to be more.
Absolutely.
And we need to have more people. It should be taught in our schools.
Yeah, we need to
Yeah.
direct law schools.
Should, absolutely.
I would like to share with you what's written in the interim fishing agreement, especially now that I know your title, your new title, Jake. I was horrified when I found this, and I want to share this with you because I'm pretty sure you're going to be equally horrified as I was. This was taken from the interim fishing agreements, and I believe they're in each one of them. I'm talking about these. The interim fishing agreements, excerpts for the purpose of enforcing the terms of the agreement. The parties undertake not to bring the existence of this agreement to the attention of any court, board, or other tribunal, and agree not to seek into the introduction into evidence before any court, board, or tribunal of any matter relating to the discussions, meetings, consultations, or documents regarding the negotiation of this agreement, generated under or as a result of. The only magic word that's missing doesn't say the interim fishing agreement. If that isn't a crime, then you will have to tell me what it is, because I believe this is a serious crime.
When you start talking about agreements, we didn't agree on anything.
No, but Jake, but the point is that you're telling us, oh, by the law, look at these innocent guys right here.
Yeah.
In court, what did they do? They didn't commit a crime. DFO did it.
Yeah,
The Attorney
absolutely.
General did it. So I'm saying, this is what they're saying to the Indian Act chiefs who signed it, you shut your darn mouth, you don't even talk about this when you get up from this table. If that's not useful to us, then I don't know what is. If anybody wants a copy of it, snap your finger.
Well, poor people make poor decisions sometimes, and that's sad to say.
Yeah, but Jake, that's coming right from the
Well,
federal
that's the only
government.
reason why these guys are here, because it takes money to do it, and a lot of people don't have the money, so.
Exactly.
That's why I'm trying to help everyone out, that's here.
Thank you.
I got a few extra dollars, so
Thank you.
just trying to make everyone aware.
Yeah.
This is our right, so we're gonna fight for it.
No, they just
Well, it's
keep,
hard not to tip cables over and smash out windows when when you get so frustrated, right?
They're just trying to take everything we've got, and then
Yeah.
just trying to leave us with nothing, and then we're sitting there with nothing, they got everything, and then the next move we get, we're scared we're gonna get nailed again for exercising our rights, and we shouldn't be scared.
Well, they poke you with a stick long enough, you're gonna break a law.
Yeah, exactly, that's where it came to me,
And
I was
that's
kind of
exactly what they
afraid.
do.
Yeah,
And I
that's-
got these guys instead.
It doesn't come down to the fishing right, it comes down to a resistant arrest,
That's right.
assault, obstruction,
Yeah.
all those types of things, and we're gonna hold your stuff as evidence. They decide after 18 months,
yeah,
they're gonna throw it out, and the inconvenience, they don't care if they was like the tobacco, they took truckloads, they don't care if they win or lose.
Okay, we
They
gotta,
just want
we
to
gotta
inconvenience.
sue them, you know?
that's exactly what they're doing.
Here's an important, fact that they never tell you, is that DFO, has along with Indian Affairs, has a fiduciary obligation to you to observe your treaties, okay? They don't, they'll deny it.
Yeah.
But the Supreme Court said, hey, they're part of the federal government. DFO and RCMP too, so. You know, and, I know nobody really used that yet, and, but you gotta start using that.
I think we should have our,
And
I've
you-
been talking about this for years, we should
Yeah.
have our own enforcement,
Yeah.
protection officers.
Yeah, and a lot of.
Looking after our regulation of our treaty and inherent
And you should
resource
have
harvest.
people, patrolling your whole treaty areas.
Because what we're doing in that regard
Yeah,
is we're the owners of looking after the property. The RCMP and DFO are contracted.
yeah, well, they're occupiers.
Yeah, we own it, right?
Right.
So why are we got these people coming
Yeah.
on, trying to regulate,
Hey, a lot of things
Our
gotta be
process.
cleared up here.
right? You can't, that is ridiculous because it's our property, it's our land, it's our territory, it's our resource.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to show that we are in charge of that.
Yeah, we gotta get to that
Which we
point,
are.
We
okay?
need a native Department of Fisheries.
Of course, exactly.
Absolutely.
To protect the trees.
And we can have that tomorrow, we can have that decision made tomorrow, the same way these other organizations were formed. When you look back at DFO, RCM, police, them, bang, oh, let's have this, let's have that, let's have a provincial plan. We could do that tomorrow if we wanted to. And, the problem is that the resources, we would have to find our resources
Yep.
because the government ain't gonna give it to you.
Hey,
They'll
and
pay
that's-
you, they'll pay you 500 million not to fish your treaty, right? Right?
That's gonna be so much
And
better.
where did 95% of that money go to? The non-native fishermen.
Yeah.
Buying old traps and old
That's right.
boats and
Yeah.
old licenses that were a $10 piece of paper for
Yeah.
$500,000.
Yeah, that their grandparents bought for
Yeah.
25 cents.
Yeah, for nothing.
$2.
Yeah,
Yeah, some of the houses had 3 or 4 of them in the house.
That's right.
3 or 4 licenses. And they come back and they say a communal fishing license. Well, nobody in the territory could live on a communal
That's right.
fishing license. There's no such thing as a communal fishing license other than for us.
they try to say that's your access to a modern livelihood.
No.
That's what they told me in an interview.
Ridiculous.
And I laughed at her. I said, "Ma'am," I said, "Do you have any hobbies that you make money off of?" I said, "Do you work any other jobs to make a living?" She's like, "No." I said, "Well," I said, "if you did, that'd be like me saying, why do you have another job? Don't you fucking have a job? Don't you have a job?"
I like it.
And so when I told her that, I said that would be like me telling you, don't you already have a job? And your response to me would say, I'm a Canadian citizen and I can have more than one job. And so my response to you is, your idea of a communal act, or my access to a communal license is not my access to a modern livelihood. I said that's the most absurd thing I ever heard.
Well-
For her to say on camera.
Yeah.
They try to use the non-indigenous institutions, like going to the disease for the cure. They think that all our problems will be resolved in the non-indigenous institutions, which are really being against us, right? And the more we go to the non-indigenous institutions, and the more certificates we get up on the wall, the more assimilated we become. And then we get rewarded for being that. It started off with a fucking star on your head when you were a little kid, when you learned catechism, right?
Yeah.
And then it just continues on, that whole process of assimilation and colonization started from then. Even before we were born, we were given a Christian name. Well, what are you going to call your kid? What are you going to do? Well, we got to give him a baptism name, do you know? Otherwise, he's going to go to hell,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, so the whole process of brainwashing has been so long, for 400 years, that all of a sudden now, in the last 30, 40 years, our people are saying, hey, that's enough of this, we gotta get back to.
See,
Yeah,
our
we-
Indian Act.
Our reserve is probably a little bit behind you fellows, because, we can't practice religion anymore, they burned our church down.
Well, we burned our church down too, but we built another one.
They built 5 of them.
It was a very nice fire.
Yeah.
See, the Indian Act chief and councils are complacent. If we don't start acting like a sovereign nation that's capable of our own self-government, governance and self-economy, then we're gonna lose that. Especially right now, with the bills that just passed, in order for somebody to even be considered native, according to Ottawa, you have to have 3 native grandparents. So according to that premise, my children,
Adding to the Jim Crow laws.
right? My children wouldn't be status natives. And according to my band, if you're not status Indian, you're not a band member. So I know people that they're both native, but they're both not 100% native. So before that new bill C-31, like the newer part of it, come out, they had a child, they had a son, who's recognized as native, therefore he's a band member. They had another son, the year after that new bill come out, he's no longer recognized as native. And his son is not a band member. And his son doesn't have the rights and benefits bestowed to his brother, who has the exact same mother and father.
Wow.
People
So-
making those rules, their Canadian citizenship runs out in about 150 years ago.
That's
Right? Yeah, no, that's right.
Hey, you know, you get around that by simply using the Rowan Proclamation. You get around that because it's constitutionally protected, how you deal with, how you can even adopt kids.
Yeah.
All we say is treaty.
Yeah.
That's all we need to say,
Mhm.
inherent. That says it all, right?
See, like,
We make those rules ourselves.
yeah, exactly, and we have to take the initiative, and we have to start doing that as sovereign people. We have to stop relying on the already established institutions to beg for what's already ours. Do you know what I mean? Like, we keep begging DFO to give us access to the resources that we're entitled to. So I mean, we keep begging them to play with their dominoes when we're trying to win the full game that might be chess. So I mean, we're playing with their pieces, and when we play with their pieces, we're not even playing the same game.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So like, we have to go to court. We have to beat them in the Supreme Court. We have to make them put our rights into play. We gotta stop asking permission from DFO, who's a byproduct of the government itself. I mean, they work under the curtain of the government. Therefore, DFO can't make laws that affect our treaty. They can't make anything because they go by what the Canadian government tells them to.
As an enforcement officer, an Indigenous enforcement officer, a treaty authorized, if you will, or inherent authorization, if I were to come up to you, I would be talking to a property owner. I would be talking to the resource owner that you would be. How could you be trespassing on your own territory and
Yeah.
property?
Absolutely.
How could you be breaking a law, drinking that water, or getting a fish out of that water to sustain yourself, right? You can't drink out of that water because you're breaking the law. What are you talking about? You
That's
know,
right.
I can't eat that fish. What are you talking about? You know, so the animals and the fish and the trees and the forest all have our DNA in them because we've been here so long. We're the fertilizer that grew this,
That's right.
right?
And our treaties are
1,000 years.
our treaties, and the laws that have to do with our treaties is only it's a recognition of the law of the land that pre-existed
Exactly.
the treaties. Like, the treaties didn't create our rights. And I say this all the time,
Recognizes it.
Exactly, just recognizes it. And I say this all the time too, that especially when like bands try to make the rights theirs. I mean, band councils try to make it theirs. And I try to explain to them, it's not your right. I don't have these rights because I'm a Millbrook band member. I have these rights because I'm a Micmac person. I said, that's why these rights exist. If there was no Millbrook, I would still have these rights.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know what I mean? So how can they
Absolutely.
pretend to be,
Yeah.
I mean, they're considered number 27.
Just like the
Just like the
tobacco.
tobacco,
No one's else allowed to sell it, but
the building
That's-
moratorium, they have
yeah.
building moratoriums without consultation. See,
We dispensed with that just some years ago in Ontario.
Well, really, any truck house or any store or any business should be anywhere in your territory. It shouldn't be on the Indian
And you should be
Reserve.
interpreting that.
that's
Because
right.
okay, well, it's in the Indian Act Reserve, we can put it there. It's
Absolutely.
part of our territory. I mean,
That's
you,
right.
you marked it off, but we can certainly go to Halifax or wherever
Yeah.
we want to do that and sell our wares. That's what the treaty basically
Exactly.
Yeah,
says.
and it says
Doesn't
that
say you can only go to
1752.
Oh, they go to the reserve. It
That's
wasn't
right.
even a reserve existed then.
Exactly.
Even New Brunswick didn't exist then.
You
right?
got it.
You know, so parts of Nova Scotia was.
That's right.
80s.
Because it says that, in the meantime, it says that we can bring to sale to Halifax or any other settlement of our choice, fish,
I'd
fowl,
like to see our,
feathers.
they call it truck house on the waterfront. I'd
Yeah.
like to see them sell marijuana there tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tobacco, whatever they wanna sell.
And if there's anybody
I'm
that's,
going here after this, Jake.
Yeah.
Come down, we
and
can
if there's
go.
anybody watching that might still be influenced by the stigma of cannabis, I just want to make a statement regarding that. I was talking to a police officer one day, and I was talking to him about being charged for fishing, and he said, "Oh, he's like, I support you there, man, 100%." He's like, "I support you, but I can't support you for weed." I said, "Why not?" I said, "Why not?" I said, "Look, man," I said, "I get it. You have higher ups, and your camaraderie is with your coworkers. You know what I mean? So naturally, you're going to be influenced by what they think." I said, "But," I said, "out of the 13 provinces and territories in Canada, about half of them support privatized sales of cannabis. It just so happens that Nova Scotia doesn't. If we were in a province that supported privatized sales of cannabis, you would 100% be for your people selling cannabis too." And he went, "Well, maybe you're right." I said, "I know I'm right." I said, 100% I'm right. I said, if they can take cannabis, make it legal, and they sell it at the liquor store, you best believe that made it available to us to be able to dispose it to the best of our advantage. It's exactly stated like that in the treaty. I mean, so.
True, they can't win those arguments, but they'll just try to inconvenience you and harass you.
That's exactly what they do, because they employ sneaky tactics.
Yeah, here's one more important point, and I think it's very important for eventually court consideration by our First Nation people, in that the right to consider any medicine, any kind of medicine, which we've been doing for thousands of years, rests with our nation. It does not rest with the idea that we've got to prove to the Caucasoid person that it is a medicine. We don't have to prove that. We get to understand our treaties much better than we have right now. Our nation had that right to approve any kind of medicine, and cannabis is simply just a medicine. That's all
My
it is.
grandfather was called Dr.
Yeah.
Frank Pope.
Yeah.
Dr.
So,
Frank Pope.
we have that
Medicine
right,
man.
but not because we have to prove that it's a medicine. It's because we always had that right as a nation to
Absolutely.
deem it one of the other medicines that we've always used. That's the argument we use.
And we've always had medicine on the stove. Medicine was always on the stove, always cooking, always medicine there all the time. I mean, all through the year, and that's what I was brought up on.
Yeah, you can go to any other house, you smell beer being boiled all the time.
It's always there.
All the time.
You can't have a selective, either it is medicine or it isn't medicine.
I'm probably here because of the medicine lady.
Yeah.
Here's something probably most people don't know about me. I think I spent 3-4 years in a sanatorium for TB.
Yeah.
And then at 6 years old, they moved me over to residential school, so I think I would affect the other kids.
Yeah.
But I spent another 5 years there, so I've gone through it all, guys.
You got credentials.
Yep, and, I don't know, and I even had to educate myself, because I was out on the street at 13.
It did trust his story. It did.
Yeah.
My uncle Lawrence Maloney was captured by the Nazi Germans. He says in an interview that the Nazi Germans treated him better than the
Got treated
Nazi,
residential.
than the nuns at the residential school.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Hey, I deal with that subject in here too, and I don't pull any punches.
Yeah.
A lot of them were they were like undesirables that were sent over to new land to try to pretend to help the
person
natives.
camp.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
I'm quite conditioned school system, slipping my hand up like a good little boy. But you know, I want to stress before it's about 3:45 now, I don't know if we're done at 4, but I would like to say, and I seriously believe that we need to take what I'm going to say serious, I mean extremely serious. Since when an Indian Act Chief of Council could undo a treaty right and quote a Supreme Court of Canada decision? So what I'm going to share with you now, the proof is here. We have it. And this has to be disturbing to all of us who believe in the treaties. So what I'm going to say to you right now is written in the interior fishing agreements. I wouldn't repeat the name of the quote, the local chief who did it, but the ban warrants that chief is authorized to execute this agreement on behalf of the council and the members of the band as set out in a band council resolution. Let me tell you, if you please, when Pierre Trudeau was in the process of doing this, on April the 18th, 1981, most of the premiers were conservative. Right here in Nova Scotia, it was John Buchanan. When we sat at the Constitutional Conference table, it was a guy Simon, Edmund Simon, I forget his name, but he was the Minister of Health. He was the proxy for John Buchanan there. An extreme racist at that, you know? So we need to be deeply concerned when these men go to offer $659 million and tell the chief, well, all you gotta do is pass this band council resolution and you can cancel out them damn rights. They didn't support it in any way. I can name you all the chiefs in the Atlantic region who didn't support that. They voted me, I got 80% of their endorsement at a national election. Yet, not one of them, because of the Union of the Brunswick Indians and Union of the Nova Scotia Indians, supported the writing in of these rights, yet they can undo them, and we say and do nothing. This is a major crime. This should be a #1 priority to us. Thank you.
Well, what they were signing away was the Indian Act rights. That's the way I always look at it.
Yeah, that's
Nobody
right.
can sign away my inheritance.
They can't.
You know, you may be able to do some Indian Act stuff, but my heritage and my culture and my spirituality and everything that I have overrides all of that.
That's right.
I believe that too. I don't believe what I see there, but that's their crime right here. That's the evidence right here. I was down in Soniaville a couple of times. I think I saw you there once or twice. I was down in Soniaville protesting that. And I forget his name now, Jerry Sapp, not Jerry Sapp, but Mike Sapp.
Yeah.
Mike Sapp was out there, our treaty rights, our treaty. And he had his employees handing out licenses.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did. I was there.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm saying this doesn't matter how it was done, and the men who are behind this, like the Assistant Deputy Minister of DFO, not just James Alexander McKenzie, but the Assistant Deputy. If it was James McKenzie, oh, that guy, he's a hard-headed fella. We keep telling him, James, you cannot do that. Oh, that guy, he'll just go ahead and do it anyway. But with this man right here, the Assistant Deputy Minister of DFO, he is a public servant of Canada. This is our case right here, and we need to do something. If we go to the RCMP with that, they're going to laugh at us, you know? But if enough serious men like ourselves, let's say our good buddy here, Matt, and with some good help from Del Riley and myself, I would certainly endorse that. This is a major crime. Let's take action on it. Thank you. I'm glad to hear you guys say that.
Oh, one last thing, actually. Anybody that's we have all kinds of treaty warriors in our association here, the Micmac Rights Association. And if there's anybody else that's exercising their rights, whether it be if you want to fish, if you're getting harassed by the RCMP for trying to partake in the cannabis industry, or exercise your rights in any capacity, we're here for you. If you look out, reach out to us. Like I said, strength in numbers. The more people, the merrier. Everybody's very welcoming, very, very warm and friendly in this group, and we're always looking forward to have new members. So if anybody's interested, don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be more than happy to send you a link and get you for him to be a member.
Yeah.
But one of the big things that I'm so proud of is Sagama Maloney, my brother. When he said, I don't need your 23, 25 million, I got my treaty,
That's right.
right? He did that.
He
And
knew.
he armed our police force.
He knew
They
something.
threatened to arrest
most
us,
people didn't.
and he armed our police forces, and I'm authorizing you, I'm ordering you to put your firearms up. And then when we were having the big fights down in the, Digby area, he got together with the warriors and got training for them. We had like 35, 40 warriors so that they know how to protect themselves against clubs and bats,
Yeah.
all those types of things. And more importantly, knowing their rights as to resist arrest, knowing their rights as to how to deal with somebody, knowing their rights if you gotta identify yourself or you don't. You know, knowing the rights
Yeah.
and authority of the powers of arrest, and all those things were very, very important.
It is.
It made a big difference.
I was on the front lines with them in rescue,
Yeah.
and I had the guns pointed at me.
He was a very
Actually,
powerful,
3 different
powerful
times.
chief. Yeah. Very powerful chief. And his authority and jurisdiction, he always thought was in his traditional territory, wasn't on the res.
Mm.
No, he was down there on the boats. He was down there where his people were. He was the big one that supported Simon in the case
Mhm.
on the hunting, 1752 treaty.
Yeah, that was
That was a big one.
huge,
That was a big
huge.
one. And he would wear his medal when he
Monumental.
went to court.
Yeah.
You know, and sitting there, and the judge would say, oh, tell me about this. So he was a very, very unique guy, very smart, college, university educated, right?
When I tell
Medal
people,
for?
You know
What
what
was
we
the
need?
medal?
Yeah.
When I
What's that?
tell-
What was the medal for?
Oh, it was a King, I think it was a King George or one of the big medals they had.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they give it to the king. They give it to
Yeah,
the chief.
they usually give it to the chiefs, too,
Yeah.
even in Ontario.
Yeah.
Big,
That's currently on display at the Nova Scotia Museum.
Copper medal.
From
See,
King Edward.
what we need to do as Micmac people, Matt kind of touched on it, you know, we're sovereign people. We should be requesting foreign aid from the United States of America.
Mhm.
We need to do that. That way we wouldn't have to be dependent. Most of us who were brave enough to stand up, and I have most all my life, but, you know, how do I live? I live on a welfare check, a little over $500 a month, you know? That's what I get.
Yeah.
Can't get jobs nowhere. If I come down here looking for a job, it's all the same system, okay? And it's been that way all my adult
Well, it's
life.
interesting because you said they were extreme racist. In reality, you only have to be a little racist.
That's right.
You don't have to be an extreme racist.
Yeah.
Being a little racist, you can be looked at like a good person.
That's right.
You know, when I started going to high school, I didn't expect a smile from a white teacher.
Mhm.
You know, everybody that had power in my life was white, right? Was the doctor, was the nuns, was the priest, was the Indian agent, was the RCM police. I didn't even think that people used the washrooms. Really, I did not think that, or ate. You never seen them eat, you
Yeah.
never seen them use the washrooms, never seen them do anything, you know, they were like, they would change your whole life, any one of them, and if 2 of them agreed, you were fucked.
Yeah.
Really, you know, you were gone.
Yeah.
Whatever they wanted to happen to you, happened to you, right? It was nuts back then days, right? Anyway, no wonder I hitchhiked and ran away. I was 16 when I jumped on the road, hitchhiked out of here.
We're good?
Anyway, this is good stuff for you guys, thank you.
No problem. Thank you for being here.
Well, I want to say thank you very much. I'm really pleased to see you, and if Jake wants to have us meeting at the Indian Res, he could make that happen.
Yeah, we would love to have one in Indian Brook. Sure, they would host it very, very quickly. Just, we got a lot of fishermen out there.
Yeah.
We got a lot of harvesters and gatherers.
Right. Yeah.
You tell a Spinagon person they can't do it, they're gonna do it,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're just gonna do it. That's, you don't tell them that.
That's
You're gonna
right.
start shit.